Utopia and dystopian literature. Watch the video that accompanies the song on the next slide.
There is unrest in the forest, there is trouble with the trees, for the maples want more sunlight and the oaks ignore their pleas.
Now follow the link above and complete the response to trees. Submit the response to the 2 questions. So click there and fill this out. And submit once you're done. Now use scratch paper and write down as many words as you can to describe this picture. When we discuss utopia, instant images come to mind. There's people lounging around. It looks like everything is just taken care of. People are not worried. There's birds singing. Everything is perfect. Because utopia is like what people imagine to just be carefree life. But that word was actually coined by Sir Thomas More when he came up with this fictional island that he wrote about back in the 1500s. It was 2 words. The first word was autopia, which means no place, and the second was utopia, meaning the good place. So he pretty much made up the word utopia, which means there's no place, but it's a good place, but that it doesn't exist. It's a place that doesn't really exist. The name itself seems to imply the futility of such a place or such an existence. But that hasn't stopped people, men, women, writers, people that ruled, people that were dictators, from dreaming about making this arrangement. I mean, but usually what happens is that people, try to create a utopia, and it usually goes awry. The word utopia really came to mean the perfect but unreachable society, something that people strive for, but which is never quite attainable. It's always out of reach. So it's less the perfect political system, but it's more stepping away from society and civilizations. What it really focuses on is like, hey, if there's like one thing going wrong with society, they figure out like, hey, if we fix that one thing, it'll make everything else right. So like the question, why upgrade the infrastructure when you could spend your time improving the plumbing so everyone has water? So they focus on certain things like, well, if we eliminate love, then that'll eliminate all of the problems because all the problems revolve around love. Or if we take away people's, personal identities and just give them numbers, then it'll eliminate the problem of people having too much ego. Or if we eliminate the ability for people to have their own money and the government just provides everything, then that'll make everything perfect. So they usually, when people come up with the idea of a utopia, either in fiction or in reality, they're focusing on certain aspects of society that they think need changed. However, it's a system that's best practiced in fiction. In the 18th and 19th centuries, they actually had a bunch of places that they created societies and tried to make a utopia, but most of them failed miserably. So how would you describe this picture? Now write down as many words as you can on that same piece of scratch paper, but keep your list separate. The development of utopia in fiction has led to dystopia, which is what that last picture really showed. You look at that, and that looks like a dystopia. When utopia isn't relevant, what do you have left? And in our current society, the rich have no urgency for the perfect, lazy, carefree life. In the destitute, there seems no way out of a life of violence and poverty. So people become complacent and jaded towards the aspirations of utopia. But others are so desperate to try to get that utopia that they try to enforce it with an iron fist. So like when we're thinking about reality and I think of an iron fist and somebody trying to create a utopia that became a dystopia, the first person that comes into my mind is Adolf Hitler. Also Stalin in Russia when he was trying to enforce communism. I mean, there are a lot of ways that this the idea of dystopia has come to fruition in society in many ways. So people have often dreamed of the perfect society since Sir Thomas More wrote his book Utopia in 1516. But over the centuries and still today, people wonder, they speculate, they try to create the perfect society, but most cases this leads to calamity instead of utopia. They are actually, both utopia and dystopia are antithetical, so they're like opposites. And they've long been themes in literature and the subject of many science fiction stories. And that actually, dystopia falls under the genre of science fiction. So how do those pictures compare? It's the same picture. Look at your list. Compare what you came up with on your two different lists. How is one of them a utopia, or the idea of a utopia, and one of them a dystopia? But even when you looked at the first picture with all the green, you may have still thought that it looked utilitarian, that it's very all the buildings are black and there's not a lot of variations, and it doesn't look like the people even in the utopia had a lot of freedom maybe to decide the types of buildings that they wanted to live in or the type of place that they wanted to live in. But definitely the dystopia looks more like, pollution, the water's green. It doesn't look like somewhere that you would want to live. Utopia and dystopian fiction seem very different, but there are some similarities. Both are extremes. One is totally hopeful, one is overly ominous. Utopians are the dreamers of what might be, but dystopian is more of a nightmare. It's not whimsical. It's more of, what people don't want to happen. Both societies aspire for absolute equality, but their approaches are completely different. Because dystopia, they're really trying to enforce absolute equality, and there's usually people that are not happy about it. But in a utopia, how they're portrayed in fiction is that the people would just be happy with whatever was decided. But there could be no dystopia without desire of a utopia, because the people that are leaders and the people that are benefiting from the dystopia think that it is a utopia. So there couldn't be a utopia without the fear of a dystopia happening either. So utopia is the ultimate contentment, but dystopian fiction is from the malcontent point of view. In dystopia, usually the narrator is speaking as a member of society who started off content, but then something happened. They had an aha moment that caused them to realize that everything actually wasn't great. As long as there's a political system, there will be people who will want to see it change, or who will want revolution or evolution. In these conditions, the emotions and thoughts that drive utopians or dystopians will continue. Can you think of some novels that you have read that contain a utopian, dystopian theme, besides the one that you read for this week? A few that come to my mind, I've talked about, and we've kind of talked about maybe in class. The Hunger Games is a common one.
The year was 2081, and everyone was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law, you see. They were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. And all this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance of the United States Handicapper General. The strong wore weights to make them weaker. The intelligent wore earpieces that kept them from taking unfair advantage of their brains. Even the beautiful sometimes wore masks in situations where their beauty might simply be too distracting. It was the golden age of equality. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, continued to drive people crazy by not quite being springtime. And it was in that clammy month that the HG men came to take George and Hazel Bergeron's son, Harrison, away.
You were fixing the TV, dear. I bet that was a real pretty dance, that dance she just did. That dance, I bet it was nice. What was it this time?
Loud. Same as last time.
Sounded a little like somebody hitting a milk bottle with a ball pin hammer from here. It must be very interesting to hear all the different sounds, all the things they think up.
It isn't.
Only if I was the handicapper general, you know what I'd do? I'd have chimes on Sunday. Just chimes, kind of in honor of religion.
Yeah, I could think straight if it was just chimes.
Well, then maybe I'd make them real loud then. I think I'd make a good handicapper general.
You would.
Boy, that one was a doozy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You seem distracted, hon. What are you thinking about?
I don't know. Can't get straight in my head, but something.
You must be tired. Why don't you stretch out on the sofa so you can rest your handicaps on the pillows? You're always so worn out. If there was just some way we could lighten.
There isn't.
I'm not saying all the time. I'm just saying maybe when you're sitting around the house.
Hazel, if I take them off, I'm gonna want to keep them off. And we both know how you would feel about that.
I'd hate it.
So, nothing to be done then.
We interrupt our broadcast of the National Ballet's Sleeping Beauty for important breaking news.
No, I don't understand why they'd interrupt such a nice ballet just to tell us the same old news.
Well, what does it matter if they're just showing the same old ballet?
Good evening. We've just received a warning from the handicap. The handicap.
That's all right, he tried. That's the important thing. I think he should get a nice big raise for trying so hard. Well, I think I'll get started with the dishes.
Good evening. We've just received warning from the Office of the Handicapper General that suspected anarchist Harrison Bergeron has escaped from custody. Arrested 6 years ago for propagandist vandalism, broadcast piracy, refusal to report for his quarterly handicapping evaluations, and for the blatant removal of his handicaps in a public place. Mr. Bergeron had been awaiting trial in a maximum security prison here in Washington, D.C. when he miraculously disappeared from his cell earlier this evening. Please be advised that Bergeron is a genius and an athlete, is under-handicapped, and is considered to be extremely dangerous. If you see this man, please contact your local authorities immediately. Thank you.
There's a bomb beneath this theater. And there's a detonator in my hand. So, I strongly suggest that you remain in your seats. Now, my apologies for interrupting this evening's entertainment. Hopefully I can provide you with some of my own. My name is Harrison Bergeron. I am a fugitive and a public threat. I am an abomination of the able. I am an exception to the accepted. I am the greatest man you have never known. And for the last 6 years, I have been held prisoner by the state, sentenced without trial, to torture without end. They had hoped to destroy in me any trace of the extraordinary. And in time I came to share that hope. But the extraordinary, it seems, was simply out of their reach. So now I stand before you today, beaten, hobbled, and sickened, but sadly, not broken. And I say to you that if it is greatness we must destroy, then let us drag our enemy out of the darkness where it has been hiding. Let us shine a light so that at last all the world can see.
West balcony. Unit C, approaching the catwalk.
Copy that. Unit E, what's your status?
Stand by. We're gonna need a little more time.
And now, for my next trick, I'm gonna need a volunteer. No one? Come now. Perhaps one of you. Music.
Unit E reporting. The bomb has been disarmed. Repeat. The bomb has been disarmed.
Copy that. Central, kill the broadcast.
Enough. Just you.
This is Central. Confirmed. We are broadcast start. You are cleared to proceed.
Copy that. All units, stand by for entry.
That one sounded kind of like a gunshot. Hun, you look upset. What's wrong?
I don't know. Something, sad. Television, I think.
You should forget sad things anyway. I always do. See, I could tell that one was a doozy.
You can say that again.
Gee, I could tell that one was a doozy.
So what makes this society a dystopia? You can look at the text of the story, Harrison Bergeron, which I emailed to you. Okay, you'll pull it up and you'll be able to look at the story itself. It's pretty closely aligned to the movie. There are a few differences, but it's pretty close. Okay, it's a pretty short story. It's 5 pages total. Okay, so and it was published in 1961 by Kurt Vonnegut, pretty much during the height of the Cold War, and so I think this story actually was a response to communism when it was first written. So anyway, so that could help you to make some more connections. Try to find at least 5 reasons that this society is a dystopia in your opinion, and then submit your list to the following Google form. Okay, you'll put your name on there and list at least 5 items from the story, or more if you can come up with more, that make this story a dystopia. You can pause the PowerPoint or pause the Panopto as you do that. So read the poem on the next slide and consider the aspects of this poem that make it a dystopia. So you should be able to be referring back to your Venn diagram that you made that compared what a utopia and dystopia were, and you came up with different characteristics of a dystopia. If you need to refer back to that and figure out, you know, what characteristics does this have that make it a dystopia. We're going to use the following strategy. It's called praise, question, polish in order to discuss the poem. And really our discussion will be online, obviously, because we're doing everything online this week. But I'll explain what praise, question, polish is, and I often will call it PQP in the next 3 slides. So the first thing is that praise, question, polish is actually a method of responding to writing. It can be used as a peer revision strategy, but it can also be used to talk about writing that has already been written and that is published. So praise, it's what do you like about the paper? What do you like about the text? What connections can you make? Questions, what questions do you have about the paper? And polish, what kinds of polishing do you feel the paper needs? So praise, what do you like? So you could answer the questions such as identifying the paper's strengths, focusing on connections the reader makes with the paper. Those connections could be with other text, it could be personal connections, it could be with other things that are happening in society, it could be anything like that. focus on the ways the writer wrote the paper. So that could be really focusing on word choice, focusing on format, focusing on organization, focusing on the other traits of writing, such as sentence fluency or voice, anything like that you can notice within the paper. If there are similes or metaphors or personification or anything like that that stands out, those are things that could be included in praise. And you can do as many as you want in the praise section. Questions, same thing. You can do as many questions as you want. What questions do you have? So this offers an opportunity for readers to engage with the question the author strategy, where you could ask the author, well, why did you do this, or why did you choose this topic, or what did this mean to the author? You could clarify any parts of the text that you don't understand. If there was a line that you had no idea what it meant, or there's a word. So when you're using this with your students, those could be things that could be questions, as, hey, what did this mean, or I didn't understand this word, or why is it organized like this? Questions about formatting or word choice or style could also be included. Why doesn't it rhyme if you're talking about a poem? Why did the author not use capitalization? Why is there, not standard convention rules being followed? Any other questions that could help the reader to understand the text more clearly and thoroughly. So any questions that would help to do that. It may help if you did this strategy with your younger students to have question starters ahead of time with maybe that they could fill in the end of the sentence rather than coming up with the whole question, and that may help to get your younger writers and readers started with this strategy. Then last is polish. So what kinds of polishing do you feel the paper needs? So this is where the reader steps into the writer's shoes, where if this was their rough draft, if this was their story that they had written, or their poem, or their novel, their book, what would they change or add or delete or move around to make it better in their opinion? So what words would they take out, or would they switch anything around, or would they add more stanzas in the poem, or would they take out stanzas? Would they add in rhyming? Would they add in more details where the reader at this point had to make more inferences? Would they clarify that? Anything that the young readers would think that they would add to this poem or story or text, whatever it is. And you can imagine already, as I was saying, that this praise, question, polish method could work really well with drafts that your students had written too, because this is a great peer evaluation tool, so that they would change text with a partner and they would find a praise, write down a question, and then a polish, and give a suggestion of how the writer could make improvements. Once again, you're not limited to one polish, one question, one praise. The more the better, because it's going to help the writer. But because we start off with the praise, it actually opens the writers up a little bit more to accepting the criticism, because they've heard what they did correctly already, or what they did right, what the people like, and then they're more likely to be open to listening to the criticisms. So here's the poem. It's called Choices by Nikki Giovanni. If I can't do what I want to do, then my job is to not do what I don't want to do. It's not the same thing, but it's the best I can do. If I can't have what I want, then my job is to want what I've got and be satisfied that at least there's something more to want. Since I can't go where I need to go, then I must go where the signs point. Through always understanding parallel movement isn't lateral. When I can't express what I really feel, I practice feeling what I can express, and none of it is equal, I know, but that's why mankind alone among the animals learns to cry. Feel free to read the poem several times if you need to, and you can even go back on the slideshow later if you need to go back. I'll give you a chance to look through the poem one more time. So go to the following link in order to comment on the poem Nikki Giovanni's Choices. Okay? It'll look like this. Another Google Doc. Now for this one, you just go in, and everybody has the right to edit in this form. So you'll go in, you may discover that people have already been in there by the time that you get in there. So you'll add in your praise. So I really liked blah, 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 whatever you liked about it. So you'll write down your connections, as many as you want. You can add to what other people have written. And then write down your question or questions, whatever you want to know, whatever things that you were wondering about, and then add in your polish. What would you change? So this will be a group discussion because everybody will be adding to this Google form or Google Doc so that you can see what other people are adding to it. You can always come back to it as well because this link, you have this in your on your module in Canvas, and I'll also attach it to that email. So once you're finished with that, then you'll go back to the Panopto. There are many ways that dystopian text can be used in the classroom. So I'm trying to show you a variety. We watched a movie, we've read a poem now, and we listened to a song. We can study these texts. We can compare and contrast. We can read them closely. We can look for themes. We can use them as model text to write dystopian stories. So look at the dystopian stories my students wrote after reading Anthem by Ayn Rand. You'll click on the link that I provided for the dystopian stories and go ahead and you can read through. So my students wrote a class book, and that's something that you'll be able to look at and respond to. What about this text? What do you think about this one?
Oh, at the edge of each ocean, you'll always find beaches. Beautiful, glorious, glorious beaches. When I meander on peaceful-ish beaches, I frequently find myself thinking of Sneetches. Sneet, did you say Sneetches? Yes, S-N-E-E-T-C-H-E-S, Sneetches. S-N-E-E-T-C-H-E-S, Sneetches.
Now the star-bellied Sneetches had bellies with stars. But the plain-bellied Sneetches had none upon theirs. No stars on their bellies. No stars upon theirs. Now those stars weren't so big. They were really quite small. You would think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star-bellied Sneetches would brag.
We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches.
With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. They'd have nothing to do with a plain-belly sort.
Ronald, remember, when you are out walking, you walk past a Sneetch of that type without talking. Keep your snoot in the air and remember to snort. We have no truck whatever with the plain-bellied sort.
When the star-bellied children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get in the game? Not at all. You only could play if your bellies had stars, and the plain-bellied children had none upon theirs.
Yeah, your belly's got no stars.
Twinkle, twinkle, lovely little star. Twinkle, twinkle, stupid little star.
If there's one upon your tummy that says yummy, you're my chummy.
If there isn't, you're a crummy, slummy, gummy, bummy, dummy.
That applies likewise to your daddy and your mommy. Twinkle, twinkle, lovely little star.
Twinkle, twinkle, stupid little star.
When the star-bellied Sneetches had Frankfurter roasts, or picnics, or parties, or marshmallow toasts, They never invited the plain-belly sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches.
From the heights of Mooba Mooba to the gullies of Gazoo, there is nobody else who has one. We're the favorite few who do. And so a toast, raise your marshmallow stick. A toast, raise your good fellow stick. And toast the glorious gimmick that makes us what we are. Sound off and let the welcome ring in praise of our exclusive fame. A toast, raise your marshmallow stick. A toast, raise your good fellow stick. A toast to your belly star.
They kept them away, never let them come near. That's how they treated them year after year. They got snubbed, they got snooted, their bottoms got booted, while the star-bellied sneetches all taunted and hooted.
They just are not suited. No stars upon bars.
Then one day, it seems, while the plain-bellied sneetches were moping and doping alone on the beaches, just sitting there, wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger approached in the strangest of cars.
My friends, I have seen they've been treating you mean. My name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean. I know precisely why you're so unhappy, and that I can fix. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. Prices are low, and I work with great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed. By my new patent process of polar potoxis of the inner subnuclear noosebomb nogoxis, you'll get a star like the star-bellied sneetch for the mere paltry payment of $3 each. A star? Here? Yes, my friend, there. And the first to go through gets the trip at half fare. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It works! Yeah, it works, it works!
Them over there, they got stars upon theirs, and we over here, we got stars upon ours. We got 'em all, so we got 'em too. For every little bitty bit is goody good as you. Now we're socially acceptable at Marshmallow Toast. You'll have to send us invitations to your Frankfurter roast. Stars, stars, bless our lucky stars. All the sneetches on the beaches now got stars upon theirs.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are faced with a most awkward dilemma. We're the true star-bellies. We had them first. We're still the best sneetches, and they're still the worst.
Yeah, but how are we going to prove it? Which is which? I can't tell us apart. Let me through. Excuse me. Step aside, please. Thank you. You don't know me, my friends, but calm down if you can. I'm here to help the original Star-Belly clan. Those upstarts, it's true, now have stars just like you. But follow me, my friends, and you know what I'll do. I'll make you again the best sneetches on the beaches. And all it will cost you is $10 each. Belly stars, my dear friends, are no longer in style, and I'll have yours off in a very short while in my wondrous machine which eradicates stars. Then you won't look like sneetches who have them on bars.
Eradicates these?
Eradicates these with the greatest of ease, provided you pay your $10, if you please.
Here's 10 for the boy and 10 for me.
Thank you.
How distinctive.
How exclusive.
Now we know who is who, and there isn't a doubt. The best kind of sneeches are sneeches without the old-fashioned custom of walking about with stars on your belly is O-U-T, out. Abdominal stars we cannot abide. Abdominal stars are abominable. Abominable. Abdominal stars are abominable. O-U-T, out. O-U-T, out. That old status symbol is O-U-T, out.
Then, of course, those with stars all got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them into his star-off machine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guessed, things really got into a horrible mess. All the rest of that day, on those wild, screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up sneeches. Off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines, they raced round and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money. They kept running through until neither the plane or the starbellies knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was what one, or what one was who. Then, when every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up, and he went. And he laughed as he drove his car up the beach.
They never will learn. No, you can't teach a sneech.
But McBean was quite wrong. I am happy to say that the sneeches got really quite smart on that day. That day they decided that sneeches are sneeches, and no kind of sneech is the best on the beaches. That day all the sneeches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not upon theirs.
A toast, raise your marshmallow stick. A toast, raise your good fellow stick. A toast to the silly gimme kick that we have here and there. Sound off and let the welkin ring. So what do you star-spangled sing? A toast, raise your marshmallow stick. A toast, raise your good fellow stick. Then poo to your belly star.
How could students examine Dr. Seuss's text as a dystopia? The Sneeches actually can work with a lot of different lesson plans, but I think that the idea of everybody trying to be the same is one way that it could really fit. It's also like there's often a have and have not scenario in a dystopia, and so I think that also demonstrates that. but then it actually ends up turning into more like a utopia at the end, because people in the story end up getting along. Can you think of any other children's books that would fit into this category or enrich this unit? And I'm thinking of unit as far as, this idea that we have a text that you read, we have a novel, we have a short story, we have a children's book, we have a poem, we have a movie which is based on a short story, we have a song. There are lots of different texts that could be integrated if you chose to do a unit on dystopia. And I think students are super interested in this topic. Here are some texts that connect with dystopian themes. There are lots of books. How could you integrate any of these into your classroom? And I do have a Google Doc for you to have a discussion on that. So if we look over here, The Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, Among the Hidden, which I talked about during class, Animal Farm by George Orwell, which is a classic, Anthem by Ayn Rand. If you haven't read that, it's actually very short. It's only 70 pages long, and it's really interesting because of the point of view that it's written from. And I think that that is a text that could be definitely used with middle schoolers. Article 5, that's a young adult book. Brave New World is another classic. City of Ember is young adult, even children's book. Delirium, which was one of the choices, so maybe a few of you read that one. Divergent, which is now a movie, but it was based on a book by Veronica Roth. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, so another young adult science fiction book. Fahrenheit 451, a classic. Feed by M.T. Anderson. That one's it's probably a little bit old for elementary school, but it's definitely dystopia and good. It's an interesting point of view and an interesting idea. Legend by Marie Lu, which was one of your choices. Lord of the Flies, which could be a dystopia, loosely. Okay, Matched by Ali Condi. So this one actually, Matched, is about a society where the spouse or the mate is chosen for you, almost like Match.com, that idea. 1984 by George Orwell, another one. Oh, City of Ember I had on there twice. Sorry about that. The House of Scorpion by Nancy Farmer. Okay, another one. The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner. Lots of these have been made into movies. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. That one's not typically studied in school, but it's one that you, I think, would enjoy. It's a post-apocalyptic. Uglies by Scott Westerfield, and then Unwind, which was the other choice that we had to read. Here's some short stories. All Summer in a Day by The Waters of Babylon. Dystopian science fiction short stories. There's a collection of short stories by Celesta Thiessen that you could click on. Harrison Bergeron, which I included. Sound of Thunder. The Children's Story. The Lottery. The Machine Stops. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin. And Ursula Le Guin was an author that's really well known, along with Ray Bradbury, of course. The Veldt and There Will Come Soft Rains. There Will Come Soft Rains actually is, there's a lot of movies about that one on YouTube too, so that one would be an easy one to include some movies, or like a little movie with. Poems, Anyone Lived in a Pretty How Town by E.E. Cummings. Choices, which we read. Dystopia, which obviously is about dystopia. Not Waving but Drowning by Stevie Smith. Patterns, Prayer Before Birth, Running Away, The Hollow Men, The Second Coming, The Unknown Citizen, and then There Will Come Soft Rains, which would pair really well with the Ray Bradbury story because it's actually mentioned in that one. And then songs. There's lots of songs out, which you may not have even thought of before, but there are lots of songs out. You'd have to listen to them and make sure that they were appropriate for school, okay? But Rush really talked about The Trees here, and then 2112 by Rush. But there's other ones. I mean, I Am the Law by Anthrax, or Big Brother, which is obvious. Living in the Plastic Age by the Buggles, Mr. Roboto. Okay, you can look through those. You could even click on some on YouTube and see if you could listen to them yourself. 2081, which we watched, Media. Ants The movie Ants. Now that, even though it's a cartoon, they're actually, it's a little bit rough. I don't think that it's necessarily for little kids. So you'd have to look at that. Babylon AD, Back to the Past from SpongeBob. Now that would be appropriate for little kids. Book of Eli, which is definitely not. Divergent, Elysium, Fringe on Fox, Planet of the Apes is another one. Speed Demon from the Powerpuff Girls, The Hunger Games, the Matrix series, The Walking Dead. So there's a lot of different ways that various texts connect with this dystopian theme, and there's more. I just included a few from the variety that we talked about, because we watched a movie, we listened to a song, we read a poem, we did a short story, we read a book. So all of those categories that we talked about. So you'll click on this Google Doc, and it just has a question on the top, and you just add your comments below, and we can you can even like add in, if somebody says something, you can click and add right below there, so that you don't have to add just to the bottom. So just kind of add in as you wanted. And you can add your own ideas, but you could also comment. But sign your name afterwards so that we know, who wrote, so also I can see that you participated. Okay, and then last but not least, now that you've responded to these different types of dystopian text, you've responded to 3, you didn't respond to the Dr. Seuss, and considered how to use various dystopian text in your classroom, how does the novel you read compare to these other texts and or other novels you have read? So now you'll go to your discussion board on Canvas to answer questions about the book you've read, and this counts for your literature study. The actual discussion board is what counts for that. So there is a link on Canvas under the module, but you could go straight to your discussion board and go ahead and answer those questions. There's 5 different questions. You don't have to answer all 5 questions. In fact, you have to do one post of your own answering one of those questions, or more if you want to talk about more of them, and then you have to respond to other people's. Download the Venn diagram and complete it by comparing and contrasting utopia and dystopia. If you downloaded the PowerPoint off of Canvas, you should be able to just click on this Venn diagram link, but it doesn't work within the Panopto recording. So I emailed you a copy of the Venn diagram, or you can access it through Canvas. So it looks like this. On one side you'll write utopia, and on the other side dystopia, and then in the center how they're similar. After you complete the Venn diagram, upload it to Canvas. If you can't figure out how to type within the Venn diagram that I sent, you may feel free to create your own within Word, or if you've already got one saved that you use with your students, you can feel free to use that. As long as it's a Venn diagram, that doesn't matter. There are many different versions of dystopian text. So far, you've listened to a song about a dystopia in the forest, The Trees by Rush. Now, watch this video called 2081, which is based on the short story Harrison Bergeron.